Hello, BookTube. Welcome back to your Daily Penguin. This is our tour through my Penguin Classic wall, book by book, author by author, period by period. Been bouncing all over the place, and it's been lots and lots of fun. We're approaching mid-October, so we don't have long to go before this tour of my Penguin wall ends. 2 months at the most. And the variation that we've seen as we've bounced all around has been an indication of the breadth of editorial choices that Penguin has made over the years. That sometimes fly in the face of some of the house mottos that they've had over the years. For the library of every serious reader, once upon a time, was the motto of Penguin Classics. But one that they've stuck with for a long time is a very simple motto: the best books ever written. And as we have seen on this March of the Penguins, that isn't always true. Not even close. You can talk all you like about the historical importance of the correspondence of John and Abigail Adams or the Domesday Book or whatnot, but you can't call them the best books ever written. In a sense, you could say that actual classics are only a part of what Penguin Classics actually publishes, despite their name. But every once in a while, we're going to hit a book that is a classic. Sorry, I'm chuckling because Frida's going nuts on you might be able to hear her. She's going nuts on a bit. What are you doing? What are you doing? Huh? Every once in a while, we will hit a book that is an indisputable classic, and we have one today. One of the greatest works of nonfiction written in the 20th century. And this is Black Lamb and Gray Falcon by Rebecca West, in a black spine Penguin Classic trade paperback at long last. This came out in 2 parts in 1941. It's on one very reductive level, it is a travelogue, an exhaustive travelogue of Yugoslavia, and a portrait of the place and its history and its people. So it's about a lot more than that, as well, as we'll see. And it's also a showcase for the best writing that this incredibly talented writer ever did. And after that 2-volume 1941 edition, it has had many other editions, including 40 years ago, a squat, vaguely pinkish trade paperback that was the thing that I got and got for many people over the years. There was also an older Penguin paperback, the kind with the white cover and the lime green spine. And the whole time that those are happening, I was thinking, well, okay, no one has any reservations about this book. No one says anything other than it is an absolute towering classic of English literature in the 20th century. So sooner or later, Penguin will induct this into their main line of Penguin Classics, and lo and behold, they did, with an introduction by Christopher Hitchens that's rather good, rather more than serviceable. An introduction by Hitchens in which he remembers that the author has an existence independent of him, which is not always something that he managed to do, and actually very appreciated in this particular introduction, and very little else in the way of critical apparatus. This book doesn't need it. It's an immense thing, but it is incredibly involving, hypnotically readable. And I wanted to give you a sense of that, give you a brief read from it. I have no idea where to dip in or where to dip out. The author was a extremely literate and compulsive rewriter, and this book made it out of the gate without suffering too much from that. But over the course of her entire life, her entire creative career, quite a bit of what she originally dreamed up and even started work on and even devoted large amounts of work on suffered from that tendency to criticize her own work. That tendency got much stronger as she got older, which is with the result that a great number of the books that we have under her name were prized out of her estate after she died, because she just sat on them, killed them, said they were bad, thought they were unpublishable. It breaks the heart, really. Although she was incredibly prolific, so that the fact that there's a triage about those books that were never written, those books that were written and then rejected from public view while she was alive, still only represent a fraction of what she wrote. This is widely regarded as her masterpiece, as well it should be. And I don't know what kind of excerpt will do any good in conveying it. It's a dreamscape of a book, just endless. What has happened to the light? What has happened to the light? What has happened? So really, any excerpt that I read you should be 20 minutes long, and we're obviously not going to do that. But I'll read you just a bit, give you a flavor, just a bit here. When Astra came to our table later, she told me that she hoped to be in Sarajevo for some weeks longer, and that she was happier here than she had been in Skopje. As soon as she had gone, I found at my shoulder the Swabian chauffeur from Dubrovnik, whom we had paid off that afternoon. "Why is that woman talking to you?" he said. He always immensely disconcerted me by his interventions. I was always afraid that if I said to him, "What business is that of yours?" he would answer in some loathsome manner of a miracle play, "I am reason," or "I am conscience," and that would be true. So I stammered, "I know her." "You cannot know such a person," he said. "Do you mean you have been in some cafe where she has performed?" Yes, I said. "I was in Skopje, and she is a very nice woman. She has a son of whom she is fond." "How do you know she has a son?" asked the chauffeur. "She told me so," I said. "You do not have to believe everything that such a person tells you," said the chauffeur, "but I am sure it is true," I exclaimed hotly, "and I am very sorry for her." The chauffeur gave me a glance too heavily veiled by respect to be respectful, and then looked at my husband, but sighed as if to remind himself that he would find no help there. Suddenly he picked up my bag and said, "I came to say that I had remembered I had forgotten to take that grease spot out with petrol as I had promised you, so I will take it outside and do it now." He then bowed and left me. I thought, he is really too conscientious. This is very inconvenient, for now I have no powder. But of course he would not have thought it necessary for me to have any powder. And I could go on from there, but I want to sort of stress to you all that's going on in even that short an excerpt, even that part of one paragraph. You can see how Rebecca West very carefully, very conscientiously mimics the idea that her narrative is just sinuously finding its own way. Of course it's not. It's that effect is produced by great labor and great skill. And it runs throughout this book in a way that will make you lose track of time when you're reading it. It just it slides all over the place, and I love that about it. I love many things about this book. I've read it many, many times, and I for a long time had that olive spine Penguin Classic trade paperback, and I was thinking, sooner or later this will come out in a black spine Penguin, and then it did, and I thought, okay, well, sooner or later it will show up at the Brattle Bookshop. This was before I could simply write to Penguin and request a copy and then review it myself. And it didn't for a long time. And then eventually I was at the Brattle. I was browsing the sale carts outside and just happened to find it. There you go. So I took it up in my hand. It made my day. I gasped aloud. And then I had that horrible thought when you find a pearl of great price at the Brattle. The horrible thought that follows is, okay, well, what's it doing out here? If I open up this thing that I prize more than anything, am I going to find it covered in obnoxious orange highlighting? But no, it was just a volume that happened to make it outside. That's all. So I grabbed it and reinforced it and have read it, chunks of it, many times. I am due sometime in 2021 or 2022 for a complete reread of this book, just sitting down with it from start to finish. And naturally, it's a recommend. Your Penguin today is an overwhelming recommend. This is one of the great works of nonfiction in the 20th century. It's an undertaking to read, but it shouldn't be double an undertaking. The size of it is intimidating enough. Don't let that put you off, I would say. But especially, don't be put off by the alleged subject matter. This, as you could tell from that one reading, this is about a lot more than just the history and culture of Yugoslavia. That's a big subject on its own, but this is much more than that. This is a mental odyssey, a spiritual odyssey. To call it travel writing. Anyway, I'm overjoyed that Penguin has added this to their Black Spine Penguin collection. I wish that they would do more. I said this about Gertrude Bell, and I say it even more so about Rebecca West, who was an extremely talented novelist. All of her novels are well worth reading, but was also a prolific member of my own profession. She wrote book reviews. Endless mountains of book reviews. And they're all brilliant. They're all incredibly insightful. Scattered all over, collected somewhere here and there. Especially, I've read myself. I've read, I've searched out this author's work, but I've read, I think there was a UK collection of her literary reviews and essays and whatnot from eons ago, 40, 50 years ago. But where is the Penguin Classic this size of that? I don't have any idea. I don't have any idea where are the Penguin Classics of her novels or her other standalone works of concerted artistic nonfiction, like The Meaning of Treason. Why? It's possible that Penguin has done some of that. Maybe they've done The Meaning of Treason, at least one version of it, but they haven't done it all, and nobody else has either, at least in the American market. And that's a shame. As I often say in these Daily Penguins, that's a shame. This is a great author, not just a great book, but a great author. And it always unnerves me a little and irritates me just a bit that some great authors get the royal treatment. They get all of their works remembered and discussed and talked about, debated and reprinted. And some of them don't. And I'm not meaning to be scoldy or trendy or anything. Please don't tell fourth wave blue-haired feminists that I have any opinions in common with them. But nevertheless, I can't help but notice that the metric by which that is determined is almost always the gender of the writer. Penguin Classics, we've seen a small fraction of what they do for Saul Bellow. They compulsively reprint everything that is connected with Graham Greene, even the works that Greene himself called minor, and that all critics have agreed are minor. But this author, who scarcely ever put pen to paper without writing something better than anything that Graham Greene ever wrote in his entire life, without writing anything better than H.G. Wells, who's liberally represented in Penguin Classics, ever wrote in his entire life, and so on and so forth down the line, this author scarcely represented at all. Now, there could be copyright reasons, personal estate reasons that have nothing to do with the theory that I'm hinting at here, but nevertheless, I can't help but think that theory might have something to do with it. Although I was informed by one of you, actually a few of you in email and a few of you in comments, that at least one of the women that I mentioned yesterday, or the other day, Mary Kingsley, is represented in Penguin Classics. The Travels in East Africa is reprinted in Penguin Classics. If so, it's a book I absolutely need to get. It's a Penguin Classic I don't have, that I absolutely need to have. But I'd like the rest of Rebecca West, please. Anytime you're ready, especially her book reviews. In a nice, big, generous volume that tells you about the book and situates the review and then let her rip. But in the meantime, I will certainly take this, because this is not a small book in any sense of the word. This is a great book, a truly great book. In the relatively modern era, in the 20th century. And Penguin has some of those. In the Penguin Classic Black Spine Penguin Classic line, there are some books from the 20th century that are as great as anything ever written in English. We'll be encountering them. We've encountered a couple, and here is another one. But for now, this is a strong recommend. It's a big thing for a lot of you to do. It's 1,000 pages long, but it's well worth it for you. Well worth it. So I'm gonna wrap this up for now. That is your Penguin for today: Black Lamb and Gray Falcon. Who knows what we'll find tomorrow? It will be a step down, almost certainly, from the heights of this book. But we'll find out together. We'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.